To open session. We will be going back into closed session at the end of our meeting to finish up our closed session item. So is there any changes or anything that needs to happen to the agenda this evening?
Just striking Thursday. It's Wednesday today. At the footer. Otherwise, I approve.
And a second?
I second.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read our announcement that individuals may address the board on agenda items, both closed session or regular session agenda items. This is a special, so we can't have non-agenda items tonight. But they can speak during public participation or at the time they are under consideration by completing the form provided at the table. They're pink, and submitting them to Anna. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers will be given or chosen at random order. Each person may only speak once per agenda topic and is required to address the board from the podium to ensure everyone can hear them. So public comment cannot be acted upon or discussed by the board unless placed on the agenda at a subsequent meeting in accordance with the law and Brown Act. The board may request staff to respond orally at the meeting or in writing at a future time. The total is 20 minutes per topic will be allowed. And please remember that the meeting is being videoed and broadcasting on the Fort Bragg Unified School District YouTube channel. And thank you, gentlemen, for doing this once again for us. Okay. So do we have any public participation on agenda items? We have a very small audience. That's why I'm so kind of smiling.
Do you want to pull your mic down?
Okay. All right. Seeing none. Then we'll move on to the action items, and that is Mr. Kale and the site plan, or school plan. The school plan for Dana Gray. And we hope you had a wonderful time, and please make sure that you take care of your family and don't feel guilty for
Thank you very much
us making these kinds of small accommodations.
Be my lone person here with the school plan. Yeah. I don't have anything to project, so I don't, but you guys have a copy. Okay to refer to pages as we go through? Okay. This school plan, and I think probably the other site principals noted it too, it's a completely new kind of form for us, so it took me by surprise, and but a lot of the information is the same information that was in it before, you know, with modification as we went along. But it has a really cool picture on the front, which is exciting. That's a big difference. Let me just zoom to the performance data, if that's okay, unless there were questions about the beginning, the data analysis part. No? Okay. So let me go quick through this information. So I'm looking at page 7 of 43. So it was the first kind of page that I wanted to note. I think what's important is that we have significant subgroups in our school, and I think that's, you know, obvious for anyone that is looking at this data, and it's important for us to pay attention to. But the main thing that I want to talk about on page 7 was that those subgroups are kind of remaining steady, like with a slight growth, but remaining steady over the years. It goes back. It goes back 3 years for the public. It goes back 3 years to 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18. But they're remaining fairly steady. Then I want to jump to, if I would, page 9 to look at the CASP results. So these are the CASP results from 17-18. Right now we're in 18-19, so we just finished those results. The findings were what we kind of already knew overall. There's increase in 3rd and 5th grade, and there's a slight decrease. This is on page 10 of the conclusions based on the data. A slight decrease, actually significant decrease in the 4th grade. This is now our 5th grade group, and we're seeing the same. What's interesting about the CASP right now is we're already seeing data from this year's CASP is appearing. And my hope is that we will get, it's really bizarre, that the state is able to get that information out that quickly. I mean, we finished the test weeks ago, and the data is already appearing. My hope is that we can get that data to the teachers to begin to analyze and think about it end of the year and use that data to prepare for intervention groups and to prepare us for how do we focus on our goals. We know already that the fourth grade group, this is again page 10, there was a decrease of 12% in their ELA scores last year. We know there's that same similar decrease, and that group is kind of an underperforming group as it moves through. So we know that generally, and we see the same things again. For the CASP results related to math, which is pages 11 and 12, we see that same fourth grade group last year. You can see it's pretty significant. If you look on page 12, in the second conclusion, it decreased from 42% to 29% proficient in advanced. That's pretty significant drop, but it's related to that very specific group. Okay. I'm jumping to page, and I hope I'm not going too fast, but I'm jumping to page 15 in there. The reason why I highlighted this was this shows socioeconomically disadvantaged 78.2%. That is a significant subgroup that we need to pay attention to. And when we look at the measures later on, like that is a group that is troublesome. Like we need to pay attention to them and make sure that we're reaching out to those groups. So page 16 begins and these are brand new for us. It begins the gauges. The gauges, okay. So overall, the gauges for us this last year, previous year, suspension rate's good. Our absenteeism is a continuing problem, and we had a slight dip in both English and mathematics overall. So if you look on page 17, and I'll get to the actions in a second, but this is really important for me. On page 17, it really shows that our EL students are very different. The achievement gap is really significant. 52.3 points below standard, whereas all students are 20 points below standard. So the difference between those two is really significant. What we know from the numbers is that we're basically maintaining, which isn't good. Like, again, if we keep doing the same things, if we keep approaching it in the same way, we're going to keep maintaining. But by maintaining, we're maintaining that achievement gap. So we need to look at ways, and we know this as a staff, we need to look at ways to really focus on that. Okay. Then page 19 in the report, again, this is mathematics, the academic performance and the gauges for mathematics. We see that same gap, that same English learners 58 points below standard. Whereas all students are 33.7 points below standard. We know, again, that gap is really significant, and analyzing the why. What this allows us to do is to look at these specific students and hopefully target those groups. We know that, and I made a note to myself, we know that all groups in math last year in 17-18, we know that all groups had a slight decline. But in this last year, we focused on math solutions PD. We focused on number sense learning. We focused on, we'd have a math intervention person. So that's really important for us to maintain a math intervention person because these numbers are in a slight decline. And we had lots of like contests and different things that we focused on this year. On page 23 is the chronic absenteeism. And we had a slight increase in chronic absenteeism for the 17-18 school year. The hope is, and it's more than a hope, I mean the goal was that we were going to focus on that this year, and the numbers will have changed. The numbers will have changed. What we want to have a decrease in chronic absenteeism. we focused, if you notice in the sentence, I have it circled for me, the English learners actually had a major decline in chronic absenteeism, which that's interesting to me. Again, like why that is, we need to pay attention to, but I think it's because of our focus on EL learning and our outreach to our EL students, our very active ELAC group, which makes a difference. I mean, that really does make a difference that we have parents of English learner students that are becoming engaged in the school. So it's about sort of changing the culture. Is that why the absenteeism for that group is not as significant as it is for all students or for other subgroups? I don't know. But anyway, I'm excited about that data. On page 26 is the data, is the suspension rate. We are way in the blue or way in the green now for suspension. This is kind of the data that principals can control the most, but sometimes not. Sometimes you can't control it, depending on what it is. We declined 6.1%. The reason this had such a wonderful decline in the suspension rate is because of our implementation of Tier 2 and Tier 3 behavior interventions. And we continue with those in the goals, and we'll talk about those in a second, but we can't turn away from those. We have to have non-exclusionary type consequences where kids still come to school. You know, I mean, that's the pressure as you get that from, you're going to throw these kids out of school, they're being bad. You have to have them be in school learning in a different environment, in a different way, and to have different layers of consequences. All right, so here's the strategies, the actions that we're going to take, starting on page 28 of the plan. So again, what's great about our goals for our site plans or our school plans is that we know what they are. They're very clear and been given to us by the district, and that's great. You know, everybody's on the same page. It's about college and career readiness. It's about close the achievement gap. It's about school climate. And what's interesting is when we started this game, it was like we would play the game of like, can we say these again and again and again? Now all of the teachers know them. Like that is the real deal. And school climate is incredibly important. College and career readiness, incredibly important. And now we've spent, I've spent in my ELAC group, lots of conversations about, what do you mean achievement gap? Who are you talking about, achievement gap? What does that mean? And it's like, let's look at the numbers and really look at them and then really look at our goals. This plan went through ELAC, it went through the site council, it went through the staff, and there's input, like little tiny pieces of input from all of them. So here we go. Goal number 1, college and career interest and knowledge. You know, the LCAP goal is about college and career readiness. When you're 8, 9, and 10, it's about interest and knowledge related to careers. And the first strategy is we're going to change the fold. We're going from a calendar binder, like a large calendar binder. It's going to make you a little nervous, I know. Large calendar binder to a folder, to a smaller thing. In previous years we gave an entire year's calendar, so it was like August and September and, anyway, October, November. It was the whole year. For 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, it's too big of a chunk. And I think as a site, we've decided that that's too much. We want to do it monthly or weekly. We want a smaller piece. So we're calling it a student folder and with calendar planners. And we're going to focus more on those AVID strategies or student success strategies to get kids more focused on a thing that they're actually going to use moment to moment, even day to day. So that's the first activity. The second activity on page 29 is with our school counselor, we're going to have career exploration lessons, which we did this year, but we're going to formalize them. And the staff has really sort of grabbed onto, we're going to complete one major lesson per year related to college and career lessons. Strategy 3 is the thing that we did for the first time this year, and it was really scary for us. It was really scary for us. This field trip to Mendocino College. Parents that were on it, folks that went on this field trip, felt that it was amazing, like amazing. It was they put on such a big show for us. It was wonderful that the 5th grade connected with that career idea and that college idea, and where we could, that even in your own community, you could take this just and do anything. Even last night, we had, last night was our open house, and we had the Adopt a 5th Grader program happening. And Mendocino College Foundation gave scholarships to 44, by the way, 44 5th grade students, $1,000 scholarships, right? Donations from the community. The college field trip was paid for by donations from the community. This is something that's important for parents and something that we want to follow through. Where I'm going with that, that scholarship was, it was the last piece that's not in this plan, but it makes sense. We have the college field trip for 5th graders in the plan. Then we have, and this is with Miss Kathy Babcock, really helped us out this year, with the school-wide career day is sort of the second piece, and that's strategy 4. And then the last piece of the college and career readiness is that people will actually give you a scholarship to go to college at the end of the year. I told the folks from the College Foundation, like, this is the time when kids still dream. This is the time when they believe they can still do it before, nothing wrong with middle school, but before middle school happens, before all of that yuck happens, we can cement it in their mind that this is a direction and something that you can do. And so having this focus in 5th grade, I think is a great strategy, okay? What we need to get better on, and it's the very last part of that last activity is on page 30, is we're doing a survey related to college and career readiness in the 5th grade. I'm really about measuring things. Like, we need to find a good way to measure this. You'll notice in this part of the plan, there's a kind of an interesting new section that says measurable outcomes. I'm worried about this because we don't really have a strong measurable outcome because we haven't been down this road yet. We don't know, is it, and we were unable to, as a staff and as a site council, sort of come up with an agreement. Is it 5% of the students will have decided on a career by the time they're 10 years old? I mean, that doesn't work. So what is the measure? So we're working on that. But anyway, that's the college and career one. Goal number 2 is about the achievement gap, and that starts on page 31 of this plan. It does have measurable outcomes. We're looking for increased CAS scores in ELA and math. We're looking for growth related to local benchmark scores. And I truly believe that we're going to be able to make these data points. Strategy 1 is about designated ELD instruction delivered daily. That's related directly to the achievement gap. We have to put aside time directly to teach EL in the classroom. We have to be committed to it. It's in our schedule. It's like at the base of what we do in small group instruction. Strategy number 2 related to the achievement gap is support time focused on targeted tier small group reading and math instruction. And the new piece, this is focused for us, but the new piece and the kind of big like explosion moment for teachers is small group instruction can happen throughout the day. It doesn't have to be just 1 hour of the day. And that's where we were at the beginning of last year. We're thinking, oh, it's just 1 hour. You could do small groups during ELA, and then you can come back and do small groups during math. Like the skills that you're developing with the kids, that independent learning time, the ability to think on their own and work collaboratively can be used in math as well. Strategy 3 is how are we going to really get to that point where the majority of the time, of students' time, is no longer sit and get instruction. It's about collaboratively working together, about working independently, about taking responsibility for your learning. How are we going to get there? Strategy number 3 is our TOSA, right? They're going to be all about professional development for small group instruction and reading. Strategy number 4 is again with the TOSA, and we came up in our staff meeting, we began, and I have it highlighted here, this is on page 33, PLC collaboration, teacher-to-teacher observation, vertical planning between grade level, pacing calendars, benchmark support, data analysis using Illuminate, Google Classroom, Aries Gradebook. I wanted to create in this plan a list of like, this is what I want to see. Like these are the pieces that I want to see our TOSA just go for and grab, and then show me that these things have been done. Strategy 5, continue professional development and in-house training on PLC data-based grade level staff collaboration. And one thing my teachers really want to see, formalized by trimester cross-site staff collaboration. We want to start working K-5. We want to be a K-5 team and really reach out so that there isn't this kind of funny divide between second grade and third grade. There should be a very natural growth curve from second to third. And it shouldn't be that third is where you suddenly step on the gas related to academics. Mm-hmm. It should be that it's this gradual increase, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So that cross-site stuff is what we want in there. Strategy 6, this actually has the most strategies on page 34. Our interim assessments need to be more connected to CASP. We're figuring out very carefully that some of the CASP interim assessments will work for us as benchmarks. And you guys, the benchmarks that the board saw this year were curricular benchmarks related directly to the curriculum and devised out of the curriculum. We're finding that those are cumbersome and they're too big and they're taking away too much time from instruction. CASP is actually leading the way, creating interim benchmark assessments that are computer-based, that are directly related to the CASP test at the end of the year, that can be done quickly and can instantaneously be scored. This thing that I said at the beginning, how the CASP scores are already coming out, like that's what they want us to do. Like they want us to have assessments that are instantaneous. And the doctor takes your temperature. They don't want to find out 2 weeks later what your temperature is. They need to know like right now. And that's what we need to know in order to intervene properly and intervene quickly. So that idea that we no longer have these sort of burdensome process of creating the benchmarks. And we're going to use the interim assessments in a model. Okay. Strategy 7 is about using Illuminate as that data collection system. This last piece in Strategy 7 is something that's coming directly out of our work with the FIA, because the FIA talks about, and this is the beginning for us, you guys were the end point of us collecting data. And we hear from teachers yeah, they're doing wonderful. I mean, they are just wonderful. But we got to do these benchmarks for the board, because the board's going to make us do the benchmarks are for us, right? For us, the teachers, right? And so the school leadership team will have scheduled trimester meetings to focus on reviewing the fidelity of multi-tiered systems of support for reading and math intervention systems. We'll look at our own systems in a pattern. These goals will allow me to say, I need to schedule this meeting, and we're going to do this because we promised to do it, right? And that comes directly out of the FIA. The FIA is the Fidelity Inventory Assessment that's designed from the MTSS system that's part of that grant. Anyway, it gives us ideas of directions to take. Strategy 8, again, we're going to continue with our walk to learn model for our tier 2 intervention. We're going to continue with primarily push-in aid support in the classroom. One piece that again came from the MTSS model was defining very clear entry and exit points for intervention. So we can't have kids in intervention forever. There has to be a goal. What are the holes that they need filled? What are the things that they don't understand or need help with? We need to help them and then move them back into the general education classroom. And so that idea of specific expectations related to entry and exit within intervention programs. And again, the idea of of refining and developing universal academic screenings 3 times per year. And the last piece, these all come from that FIA design. The last piece, intervention progress monitoring data will be reported to grade level, whole staff, and leadership teams. So we need to create times. It isn't just about reporting to the board. Like I mean, it's wonderful to report the benchmarks to the board. Like you're like, oh, great, you know, but you don't need that data. We need that data, and we need to look at it. We need to look at it independently. What you guys as the board did is you gave us a reason to begin collecting data and analyzing it on our own. But now we need internal systems where we analyze it on our own, and ideas we have to be responsible to ourselves to create reports to ourselves. That's what will drive the creation of the data. Does that make sense?
Meaningful data.
If you ask somebody, you know, like you have to, 3rd grade, you have to create a report about your benchmark data, and you have to give that report to 4th and 5th grade. They might say, well, why? Why do I have to do that? Well, the process of making the report is your analysis of it. If, you know, it's that old thing about the person who's talking in the room is the one that's learning the most, right? And that's the problem if teachers talk too much. But the people that are talking about their data are learning about it as they're reporting it. So having more options related to that. So that's in the achievement gap. All right, last one, I'll go fast. School culture. This is a big deal, and I hope that I'm doing well with school culture. You know, the school would, anyway, it is at the center of what we do. The measurable outcomes are really interesting, and we have developed ways with our behavior tracking forms and our referrals, behavior tracking forms. Mm-hmm. We can measure our success related to how we're doing. The way we're going to measure that in the outcomes is one of the great PBIS measures is the average daily rate of referrals per month. So that is the number of referrals I get per day, per month. And the goal for a school of our size is less than 4. Like that's like it's like an international, not international, a national normed thing where it's supposed to be a school of about, 400 kids is less than 4 per day for the principal. In 17-18, we were 4.85. So we were just above where we were supposed to be. This year, depending on June, I am hoping that we're going to be below 4. Like we're right at 4 right now, which is really interesting. And the other major PBIS measure is the total number of referrals, right? And this is a huge jump for us, but a 10% decrease from, we had 875 referrals to the office, to me, in 17-18. That's how you measure school culture, is by having a very intricate tracking system of behavior. And we have that in place, we just have to use it properly. And we're doing well with that. Strategy 1, that didn't work this year, and we talked so much about why it didn't work. It was in our plan last year. Informational nights throughout the school year, reading night, math game night, technology night. We're throwing some money at this one. Like we're going to create committees. We're going to do this one. Even the teachers were like, we need this. Parents want this. Why can't we do that? Like, what is the, it's like time and tide sort of slip away. And anyway, if it's in our plan, we're going to do it. Okay. Strategy 2, Pod Squad. This is one of the most interesting, wonderful little things that has just come. This model of after the peer helper stuff that's at the middle school and the high school, we're going to expand it. I want to create the idea of the mentors, 5th grade mentors to 3rd grade mentors. I want 5th grade. It's not me. It's the staff. 5th grade mentors to lead expectation stations, to regularly teach games on the campus, to regularly teach playground activities. And one of the things we're really going to reach for that the public will probably see is I want to change the morning arrival. I want the Pod Squad, our peer mentors, our school leadership to be out there welcoming kids to school, and to see what that looks like. You know, at other schools that I've been looking at, they do a door opening thing, which is really interesting, where they, good morning, and they open car doors as they pull up. Some safety issues related to that.
Thank you.
But we'll see, we'll see what happens. The site council spent tons of time, this is a strategy 3, tons of time talking about award assemblies. And our school counselor, which we're just so wonderful that we're going to have a school counselor, is so focused on positive reward assemblies. We have explore ideas of academic awards, and all 4 awards, a principal's award, largest growth in the classroom award, perfect attendance award, improved attendance award. The list is going to go on and on. Like this is going to be a way to really focus on attendance and to really focus on those specific socioeconomically disadvantaged kids. We're focusing on the edges to try and increase whatever the incentives are. You win a bike at the end of, whatever it is, to really help our students focus on attendance. Strategy 4 is about the school counselor position, and it lists a lot of things related to PBIS team, PBIS expectation stations, classroom restorative circles, continuing with social emotional learning in the classroom. Like, that's incredibly valuable. I really believe that we call it BIC during SEL, or SEL during BIC, in reverse. During breakfast in the classroom is when we focus on social emotional learning. There's so much power that we can get out of that for our students. Focusing, having professional development around functional behavior analysis, professional development around mental health awareness. All of these things are really important for our community and for our students. The last piece comes out of MTSS. The last sentence in this says, PBIS will report data progress each trimester to grade levels, whole staff, and leadership groups. Again, the process of creating reports creates learning around it and disseminates information. Strategy 5, we're going to continue with the school attendance review team. I am hoping that it paid off this year. We've got to continue with parents receiving letters, parents receiving phone calls. What are the barriers? How can we help you get to school? What's going on? Reaching out to families and to talk about the importance of school attendance. I get a lot of phone calls from parents that I'm really annoying, like, you sent me a letter saying I was tardy 34 times. Yes, I did. Well, that doesn't matter. Yeah, it does, kind of, a little bit. We can do better, right? Strategy 6 is incentive programs, again, about excellent attendance, improvement in attendance, monthly awards, a drawing for a large, see, if you put it in the plan, like, we'll do it, right? Larger reward for each trimester. Counselors has this great plan to send out cards at the beginning of school. Anyway, she was very excited about that, so that is in the plan. Last strategy, strategy 7, continue with the implementation, and this is about, it sounds very, whatever, fancy, non-exclusionary intervention systems related to behavior. Continuing, one of our greatest secrets right now is the buddy classroom. The idea that you aren't necessarily sent to the principal's office when you can't sit in your seat. You're sent to your buddy classroom, somewhere where they'll help you sit in your seat and they'll help you do the work and they'll lead you through it. And surprisingly, it's a qualified teacher that's right there that's helping you do this work, and that when you're done, you can go right back to class. You're not in trouble. It's just, you just kind of got off course a little bit. Those ideas where it isn't about excluding kids from learning. It's about creating systems around when they do go sideways for whatever reason behaviorally, that they don't destroy the school climate, they just are given the chance to get back on track and continue learning. So that's what all of these tier 2 discipline systems that we will continue. There you go. College and career readiness, close the achievement gap, and school culture, and we're working on it. Any questions? Besides, boy, that was a long presentation.
So, you're doing great Great work there. I was so impressed yesterday when I came up with my granddaughter. She went to Mrs. Peory's class, and she split kids up into pairs to take small groups around, which was great. And my granddaughter, when she first walked in the classroom, she was hiding behind me and shy. And by the time we left last night at open house and went to see, she met every teacher, saw her third grade buddy, and introduced her little sister to her. She's like, I can't wait to go. I can't wait to get to Dana Gray. So, good job. Thank you.
Thank you. It is that independent learning, that idea. Like the expectation of children should be that they're going to work in teams. They're going to work there, and they're going to be responsible for their own work. And it isn't just they're just going to sit there and listen to the teacher all day. Like they're going to become independent learners, and that's what we want. That's what we want in high school.
Yes,
that's
we
what we
do.
want as adults. Right. So, okay.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thank
Very
you.
nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kale.
Okay. Do we need a motion?
Yeah.
I move we approve Dana Gray's school plan for 2019-20.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? No?
Did somebody second that?
Diana?
Okay.
Emma?
Trustee Matson,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
and Trustee Makala.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Kale, you are welcome to make your drive if you,
I was going to hang for
you can, of course you can, but
Yeah.
I just don't want you.
And you're
It's
welcome to
exciting
stay.
stuff.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move to 6.1, the local control accountability plan.
So the LCAP, the format changed a bit this year, and so the highlight section where we used to do the whole summary from the previous year is now the highlights for the upcoming year. So that's one thing that changed. Remember that with the LCAP, what I do with the LCAP is I take all of the site plans and I throw them up and I look at what everybody is doing for career and college ready, and then I coordinate with Wendy to make sure that that corresponds with our budget, because our LCAP is supposed to encapsulate everything that we are spending our supplemental and concentration on, and our title monies. Is that correct?
Well, no, supplemental concentration has to be identified at 100%, and then other areas that are contributing to whatever actions we have in there get shown also. But the total amount of nothing else has to be included. We do show total amount budgeted and how much is included in the LCAP. 100% of the supplemental concentration plus whatever else is contributing to those actions.
Does that make sense? So we don't, because someone had said to me, well, what about, how come we don't mention the total school program?
Right.
Because the LCAP is not about the total school program. It does very much outline the goals that we have and how we're working towards those goals. So there's some things already. I know some of you had sent me some suggestions about what to put into the LCAP. And it's interesting because I sat down with Wendy and I said, now, wait a minute, do we put that in the LCAP? One of the things I know one of you had mentioned about like our DLAC meetings, we had the DLAC parents come up and provide some recommendations, and that we are going to put in parent portals at each of our schools with the Chromebook designated for parents, so they come in and use Aries, and we have someone at each of our sites minus Alt-Ed who is bilingual. Do we put that into our LCAP? We're not devoting any dollars to that. Does that make sense? So I looked at Wendy and I said, okay, so do we put that in? Do we not put that in? And we said, okay, are we getting too deep into the weeds there? So I'm going to ask some questions of Paul Jones Polton about what should go in and what should not go in. I know you had asked some questions about career tech, about CTE, and how come the pathways weren't mentioned more? Because the pathways aren't really supplemental in concentration. And we have it in career and college readiness, but we don't talk about the whole program. So we talk about the goals. I can put something in there about our pathways so that they're mentioned. Is it tied to an action? Is it tied to something that we're doing? Does that make sense? So, and then in the highlights, what I tried to do is I opened up all the site plans, and then I took all the actions that they have, and I tried to give a list of what we're doing at each site. So, like with Alt-Ed, I have in here the get focused, stay focused, but when we look at their site plan, some of the comments that you had emailed me and said, hey, what about this and this? It wasn't in theirs.
Oh, okay.
So, but I can have that conversation with the principals of things that we want to add. If we want to specifically talk about the pathways for CTE, we just have to figure out where that would be. Obviously, it would fit under Goal 1 for college and career readiness, but how does it fit in? You know, is it a strategy? Well, our pathways are, those are our pathways, those are part of our program.
Right.
Are we using supplemental and concentration for our CTE teachers? I don't think so.
I don't think so. If we are using any of it in there, then we identify it.
So, anyway, it's been a good, every time I think I know what's going on with the LCAP, the state does this wonderful thing and changes the template. And they add new rules. So I'm still teasing out all these questions because they are good questions and good comments. So I'm gonna,
And part of the reason I asked, and I should have specified, is that Perkins and CTIG asked if this is part of the LCAP. That's why I put it in. I should have told you that. I always say yes.
Well, we overall, it is mentioned, and yes, there are some Perkins Fund identified in there because they are supporting where we do talk about having the CTE programs. And when we add or change or augment a program, and this is a 3-year plan, so
Right.
2 years ago, we said our goal is to have a media pathway, I think it was I forget what it was called, but anyway, we were going to do that, and these were the funds that were going to be used. We included Perkins, we included CTIG, and we included, I want to say some supplemental concentration, but I don't remember for sure. So when it's an action that's new, changing, directly supporting a goal, then we identify it. And you know, if we get to, so after this year, it's going to be a whole new 3-year cycle. So we're going to look at it again and say, okay, do we need to break that down further? But, you know, we're starting with this first 3-year cycle now.
so let me figure out, because I think you bring up a good point. If we're referring to it in Perkins and our CTIG grant, then we should make sure that it's in there. So let me think about
Okay.
how to put that in.
Tease it out. Okay. I should have said that in my email.
Now it makes more sense.
Yeah.
But I think you can genuinely say, yes.
Yeah.
We do reference our, not specific pathways, but we do reference the CTE programs and that there are pathways.
Okay.
So just moving through the document, like I said, the highlights is different this year. It's about the 1920 highlights and not the previous year. I adjusted the story a little bit. I hope it reads better. You might want to look through that. Everything in every school's school plan, I tried to list into the highlights, and I tried to list it by goal so you would have a snapshot of what everybody is doing under that goal. The greatest progress was really about our professional development, moving towards the multi-tiered system of support, which is MTSS, continuing our PLC work. The greatest need really is our test scores and chronic absenteeism rate. I'm excited that we are making more of an effort to look at our attendance because I think it's working. We had a meeting with their administrative team last week, and we talked about how we need to look at attendance district-wide, not only from kids, but to also employees, and all of us making a concerted effort to take attendance much more seriously. So our test scores and our chronic absenteeism continues to be a concern. The performance gaps, in this section, we have to specifically address any groups who scored 2 or more levels below the all-student group. So I specifically addressed that so that you can see those groups. And then we have no schools identified for CSI. and then we go right into the goals. So I updated the metrics as best I could. The one metric that we don't have available to us right now are the CTE completers, and I put numbers in based on our best guess. So the dual enrollment is something that we're not completely done yet because kids are still finishing that and grades are due June 10th. So we can make a best guess on that, but I didn't want to have the counseling office do the work twice.
Right.
So, but what's exciting is when you look at the metrics, you can see some improvement. Am I going too quickly, or are you okay?
I'm good.
Okay.
Good.
So, in goal 1, the annual measurable outcomes, we had an increase in our A to G rating from the previous year. We had more AP exams passed with a 3 or better from the previous year. It's interesting because our senior class is not as enthusiastic to take AP exams as in years past, and we saw a big decline from 15-16 to 16-17. We took a little bit of an increase coming up, but again, I'm just speaking for my own senior. He took 1 AP exam this year versus last year when he took 3. Took 3. So,
How handy to have.
yeah, but that's a significant difference. You know, he's taking 66% fewer exams, and if you have a senior class of 25 kids and they all took 2 fewer exams, that's significant.
Yeah.
So,
You know, what would be more interesting is to know the percentage, the kids that took the AP course and how many took. That
How
would be
many
more
opted
useful
to take the
than,
test.
you know, he may have only taken 1 class this year versus
Mm.
the junior year is always more difficult
That's
and more
true.
AP exams.
and those AP exams, as you know, are very much more considered for college acceptance.
Mhm.
All the seniors have given their
They're in,
intent
yeah.
Mhm.
of where they're going to attend. They've already done their May signing. Whether they get a 1 on an AP exam at this point or a 5 is not going to change their trajectory of which college they attend. It may help them
Graduate quicker.
graduate quicker. It may help them get out of a class, but it's not a deterring factor at this point. So that's a little interesting to me. One of the things we're looking at the high school is talking about more dual enrollment because we have 2 AP English classes, and I don't want to cause mutiny, so I've always wondered, you know, do we need 2 AP English classes because they only get credit for 1, even if they take both and pass both. So that's always something to think about and consider. But I know hugely important, hugely important. Moving down on the metrics, you can see the dual enrollment and that we've had a steady increase each year. We are kind of getting to the point where we are seeing a small increase, not huge ones, because we have saturated our student group. So we're doing a good job. The next step for us to have those numbers increased means that we have to look at CTE dual enrollment opportunities. Like I said, we're kind of saturating the academic part. What was interesting to me is when you look at the baseline of the CTE pathway, that 1 year where we had 41 completers. Sarah and I still scratch our head and wonder if that was completely, you know, correct, if we did it, if it was counted correctly. But for the most part, the completers being at 17 or 21 makes a whole lot more sense, doesn't it to you?
Mm-hmm.
Depends on your numbers in the classes that year. And you might have more signups,
Oh, true.
more students in the class. And plus, we also, some years you'd have 26 seniors, and some year, you know, out of 80, and some years you'd have 50 seniors. It's just, it varies.
And their goals.
So, the prepared students in the college and career readiness indicator on our dashboard, we are looking for that to have a big improvement because last year we did not report our seal of biliteracy and we didn't report our Golden State Seal merit diplomas. Am I saying that right?
Mm.
So with those two added on this year, that should move us forward. And then the graduation rate, just remember that the graduation rate moved to a 4-year cohort. It's no longer just the graduation rate for Fort Bragg High School or for the district. It looks at, okay, you're a student, you entered high school in 2015. Who are the students who all entered high school at 2015? Did the group who entered at 2015, did they all graduate in 2019? If the answer is no, then those students become dropouts, even if they graduate the following semester because they did alt ed, adult school, some different program. And then any student who is in that 4-year cohort but does not earn a diploma, maybe a certificate of completion, would be a dropout. So our 4-year cohort has changed, which is why our graduation numbers look drastic. Someone had made the comment to me, whoa, you guys were at 95, 96, and then you dropped to 87. What happened? Well, it wasn't all of a sudden, everybody didn't graduate. It's because the calculation was different. So just remember that. And then the actions, again, are focused on our supplemental and concentration dollars, what we're doing in all of the school plans. Is there anything in here at this point that you are seeing that we're missing? I do have the notes, like I said, about our CTE pathways and
So do you foresee that Avid's going to stay in the LCAP? Because it seems to be, I don't know, was stagnant's not the right word, but it just doesn't seem to be getting its grip.
well, it's because we're making changes. So at the middle school, we are infusing Avid in the 7th and 8th grade social studies program. And so I really want to work with the social studies department next year to see what that looks like and to see how we do that. One of the things that we've said at the middle school program is when we look at our data every year at the middle school, we look at our DNF data, we look at our test score data. The glaring things that that data tells me is that we need to prepare our middle school students to be better middle school students. They may not necessarily have the skills or the intestinal fortitude to do the work that's necessary to be successful. And when I mean successful, I don't mean all A's, nor do I mean all B's. I mean being in charge of their learning and moving forward. We have students who still haven't been on ARIES and have no idea they can check their grades. We have lots of students who do. The middle school this year implemented their homeroom once a week, and the teachers are doing many, many homeroom activities that are calling attention to these things. They're having students check their grades. They're doing binder checks. They're looking at their reminder binder. So they're doing that once a week. So the goal is if they still do the homeroom and we can get something in social studies to really work with students in the 7th and 8th grade on these student study skills, strategies, the goal is to help students be a better student so that they can do better in all of their classes. I don't want to abandon Avid because I really believe that there is a place for Avid, and I believe that it's time for us to take the leap and grow with Avid. I'm hoping that the elementary principals will be working with Jamie Gill, who is our Avid rep for our region, to start really taking a closer look at Avid strategies in the K-5 and what that means as an elementary school. And believe it or not, what we're doing with MTSS is right aligned with Avid. Everything that we're doing with our multi-tiered systems of support is 100% aligned to Avid strategies and Avid school-wide program. So I know it's a little stagnant right now because we've had to make some changes that really gave us some big steps. I don't want to say steps back, but it just kind of made us gasp for air and say, okay, how do we do this now? Upward Bound is a wonderful program, and it really brought in sections to the district and allowed us to reduce some sections, but it meant that we had to drop 2 Avid sections because we didn't have enough kids. We had so many freshmen apply for Upward Bound and Avid this next year, I'm hopeful that we can run 2 fully robust Avid sections at the high school next year and do as much as we can to partner with Upward Bound. We need to keep Avid at the high school. We absolutely have to. There's too many kids who Upward Bound can't serve, and Upward Bound only has a cap of 60. So we really need to keep it at the high school. We really need to expand it at the middle school, and we absolutely need to consider how we start the conversation at the elementary school, district-wide, school-wide. So Kelly Farrell, bless her soul, has already done the application and the update for next year, so we're working on that. I think to be able to charter the high school and the middle school, it's around $9,000. So we'll be devoting supplemental and concentration dollars for that. And we just need to keep moving forward with it. What I appreciate about Avid is that it's tried and true. It's research-based. We know it works. We just need to figure out how to work with our team so that we move forward as a school and it's not pockets of people. So we're still definitely a work in progress.
And I always, in the LCAP, I think there is always the planners. And are those paper planners, I have no idea what that costs, but is that efficient? Like, we're into all this technology. Should the planner, is there a way to do it online? Like at middle school level, my kids have always either lost it, the page is torn out, forgot to write in it. I mean, if it's on the laptop, they're accessing that. It just seems like it'd be more efficient, and they have no excuse. Well, can't find it, didn't write it down. It just,
And
I don't know what the
what a
cost
great
of
comment.
that.
We might be, maybe we should transition to Google Calendar.
I don't
And that's
know
one of
what
the
that
things-
means for a student in the day, but it just seems like this is archaic. I mean, I'm a paper person. I like, don't get me wrong, but kids are not that organized. I may be able to keep something like that, but not.
Well, the
every
idea-
can.
Technologically.
The idea behind the planner was to just begin the conversation. You know, when someone says, what's due next week? Well, go look in your planner and see what you have due next week. Not that we can't do that in Google Calendar. So for the older kids, maybe that's where we transition and we say, okay, we're going to abandon the planner, but everybody get out your phone or your Chromebook and put this in your calendar.
Yeah, I don't know. It just
Through
seems
Google
like-
Classroom, teachers can send out invites on the calendar so students get alerts. So
That's
And I
the
always
other nice
thought-
thing. Oh, sorry. If you do that, if they have that, they can set notifications. Oh, God, I have that paper due. Or, oh,
Right.
there's a lot of pluses.
Well, and then the parent can access it, because if they can't find that planner, we
Right.
can't verify, well, what was due? Well, I forgot to write it down. It's like it's already in there. I don't know. the
Well,
popular
that's
itself.
different, because a
That's-
parent can't access their kid's email unless the student.
Well, right, if you sit, yeah. if you're
But
having
that's
the
where their calendar is
conversation.
connected to.
Mhm,
So,
gotcha.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
it's,
talk over you.
I always thought, and I think because I am such a paper phobe, I guess, trying to do everything I can to not use paper, I always thought the planner, since I have 2 boys and they never use the planner, to do the reading logs in there. Instead of having,
Oh.
Another paper.
I don't even know how many sheets of paper that counts for a year for, 357 students times however many weeks that is.
180 days?
Well, it's per week.
Mhm.
My kids
Okay.
get one, or Ryan gets a reading log every week, but he loses it. Anyway, I always thought if they wrote in, that was a great way. They've always kept the planner, but it really doesn't get opened.
Gets empty. It's
Um,
empty. Yeah. just
But I
sounds
was just,
pristine.
yeah, it was always, but I don't know if that could go through Google Docs too, but there's just
That's a lot.
so many,
It's
I
a
mean,
lot
yeah.
to convert to, but it's just something to think
One
about.
time, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to do it
Well,
all
and
at
the
once.
hard part is that you have to make, the planner is a wonderful, wonderful tool. We need to train our teachers.
I don't think they're that expensive either.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the big scheme of
Right.
things, if they're used efficiently,
Yeah.
it's a great tool. The question becomes, are they used efficiently? If our principals are coming to me and saying, okay, we want to try something different because we're seeing this $1,000 annual expense, we want to do something differently, then okay, then we'll try something differently. My biggest thing is, what is the goal we want to achieve with this? We want to achieve better organization, and we want to start developing that skill of forethought. What are we doing next week? That skill of planning, because that executive function really is not developed in our kids, and it needs to be trained. That's not something that we
Early.
can say, okay, when they turn 25, the frontal lobe will be developed, they'll be better at it. Okay, that's really training. That's training, and that's my concern. As I watch kids go through our school system, and as a middle school and a high school teacher, I really was witness to it. In middle school, I spent so much time as a teacher on organization, so much time on planning and making sure that their notes were in a certain way and they referred back to their notes, and always taught kids, you need to go back to your notes, look at your notes, use your notes. Okay, that's why we took the notes. It wasn't because I was torturing you. But really infusing those skills so that the goal was, we're teaching organization, we're teaching forethought, we're teaching planning, and that's what a planner can do if we use it that way. It's really got to be, it has to be up to the site and up to the staff on how they're going to use it. So I don't want to sit here and say, okay, we're going to just force it down everybody's throats and use this money to do that. It needs to be a team discussion. And if that can be achieved with folders or however you want to do it, then more power to you. Again, I go back to the goal. What is the goal? We need to help our kids learn and hone these skills. And I don't care who you are and how smart you think you are or not, that is a skill that you can use the rest of your life. And it's not something that is developed overnight. It is
Right,
developed
right.
over time from practice and repetition.
Right, muscle memory.
Christine Decker made a comment to me. She said, Becky, it takes 90 days of consistent behavior to form a habit. Okay. So if I ate better for 90 days. But that's what we look at when we're with kids. That's half a school year, if you think about it that way. It's 180 days of school, and so it's going to take consistent daily habits to do that. And so however we do it.
I do love the idea of the tech. I didn't think about the calendars and all, but I have to say that I've bought a planner every year since I've been a teacher. And I probably, if it could just roll over the year, it'd be usable over and over and over because I use it that little. And being on the board, I finally clicked into the calendar and now I'm addicted. And I can get it anywhere. I can pick it up
Right.
on my phone. I can get it when I'm down in the Bay Area.
But that's the
wherever I
point.
am.
Our phones, our calendars are like a planner.
Right.
And that didn't just happen overnight. And Anna looks at me in the morning and says, okay, have you looked at your calendar?
Right.
Yes, I have. But that keeps me on schedule. It keeps me from not having to remember 10,000 things. But that's what we need to help instill in our kids. If you have a project due on Tuesday, what are you doing between now and Tuesday to get that project done? If you have an essay due on Thursday, between now and Thursday, what are you doing to get that essay done? And it's really about training our kiddos to use their time wisely.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think technology, they're so tied into it. I think if we gave it a try and switched, I think they'd start using it.
They use it in a different way.
No, they do, but I think they would, I
Yeah.
think they'd be more apt to do it here than here.
So the only thing that we are going to have to put in here under a strategy is our foster homeless youth. I haven't included in it as a specific strategy, but because they are in the red zone and we are in differentiated assistance because of our foster homeless youth, we have to make a strategy specific to them, is what I'm being told from MCOE. So in the next iteration of the LCAP, I'll call attention to where that's going to be. It's probably going to be under closing the achievement gap because it's specific to their performance on the CASP. So we'll have to put in something towards that. We are looking at the elementary counselor, the addition of the elementary counselor to work with our kids who are low performing already. And so we'll probably be putting that academic component with the foster homeless youth on our counselor as well, because now we're going to have a counselor, one at Redwood and one at Dana Gray. Questions? I know this was invigorating reading.
There's a lot of duplicates since it's third year, so
Mhm.
there's not a whole lot of new.
And that's the point of the LCAP. The LCAP is designed to be a 3-year plan so that it's not every year you get something new. So that if I get hit by a bus and the next superintendent comes in, the next superintendent can say, oh, this is what you plan to do in 3 years. What did you do? What was the baseline? What were the metrics? And anyone can come in and see, are we doing it or are we not doing it? And when we're not doing it, what's the reason behind it and what are we doing to mitigate that? So it's not a whole lot of differences, but we just freshened up some of the strategies that we're doing, like MTSS, that was new, we received that grant. We're really looking at our multi-tiered systems of support and how we do things from site to site so that it becomes more seamless.
And is that in-house training that they're getting for the MTSS for the grant? Or do
No,
they have to go
we've been
out?
taking a
Taking
team
them
to Humboldt
sites?
County,
Oh,
actually.
to Humboldt County, okay.
Any questions for Becky?
Anything about, because we're in red for the district for foster youth for chronic absenteeism and suspension rate?
So we're gonna
So
have to
how are
address
we-
that as well. I addressed it in the needs
Mm-hmm.
assessment, but we're gonna have to make a strategy specific to that. And right now, we're probably gonna be attaching that with the counselor, the elementary counselor, and
Because
then for
there's money
the,
to it.
and then for the middle school and the high school, we'll attach some of that to the counseling services at middle school and high school. We're probably gonna be looking at some of that, at least at the middle school, with administration for the
Mhm.
assistant principal. We're talking about having him do some weekly or monthly check-ins with our kiddos. And then at the high school, the counselors and the admin team already look at kids every week
Mhm.
and target kids who are hitting the 9 days. But the chronic absenteeism for the homeless, for homeless foster youth in chronic absenteeism is really at elementary and middle school. So
Mm.
we're going to be using the counseling services and administration at middle school to address that.
Right. And I think the CEP program, if it goes through, that could help, but we can't put that in there to be a support because there's no, I mean,
There's no
can
money
you?
attached.
There's no
that
money
we-
attached to it, but it could improve. That's what's so frustrating about the LCAP is it's such a partial of what you're doing. It's tied to the money, but there's so much more that you're putting into it in effort. You know, all the staff's working towards all of these and so much, but it's not represented in the document, but that's the struggle of the form.
So we have a lot of things happening next year. I think we're all hopeful that we'll see improvements. Someone had made the comment that breakfast in the classroom really decreased our tardiness and improved our attendance, and I would think that. But we also don't know if the teachers made such a valiant effort to talk about attendance and being on time. You know, was it that? We haven't isolated one variable. That's the problem, is that we are trying to fix the airplane in flight. So it means when you're flying and you're fixing the airplane, you're doing your best to try all your strategies that you have, and you're never quite certain which variable made the difference. And sometimes it's a little bit of everything. So I think we're all hopeful that our attendance will improve this next year, and we'll see how our test scores go. Right now, the preliminary scores that are coming in, they always look positive. We all feel good about it. The difficulty is we won't know until we can get those cohort scores together. So,
Any comments from the public?
From all two of you?
All right. Okay.
So this is just the first read, so we have opportunity and the public has opportunity to.
just a little excitement. That was not a fire alarm. That was our technology here.
Looks like Windows 10.
Just trying to keep everybody awake.
Okay, so we will see this again in June.
Yes.
And the areas will populate with dollars
Yes.
when you have that information.
Yes, June 13th will be the public hearing.
Okay. All right. Then I think we're ready to move on to the budget workshop.
Woohoo. So it's more of an overview of the May revise. So is this ready to? Okay, let's see. Not exactly. You have to turn that, close that little box.
No.
Yeah, in a word. Okay. Oh. No. Turning it on is really a good strategy. Okay, and it's still not. It's got a battery? It's got a battery. but the dongle's still in here.
Well, that's always important, the little top ones.
Okay, now let's try it.
Get the first
Okay.
one going.
Yeah. Okay, so part of it's cut off there, I'm not sure why, but that it basically says the same thing as school funding fair. And, you know, we all pretty much know the answer to this. And while these numbers, funding per pupil, 32nd at $8,961 per student, and then 2000, that was from 2015, 2011, we were 38th at 7,730. And, you know, the gap between us and the 10th ranked state were 66 and 65% respectively. And while the numbers are a little better from 11 to 15, the trend isn't great. We're still 32nd. And the local control funding formula being at full funding now, the next time this report comes out, it'll probably look a little better, but it's still not adequate for what is needed. So, and in this same report, you can see that the per capita personal income in California is above the national average, but we only provide $34 for each $1,000 of personal income. And if you look at New York, they have a similar per capita personal income, but they spend $55 of every 1,000. And in New Mexico, with much lower per capita income, they pay $48 for each $1,000 of personal income. So there's definitely a disparity, and we should maybe prioritize education over prisons. The study also looked at how states handle their high poverty districts. In California, they only receive 2% more than low poverty districts, and in Massachusetts, they receive 10% more. So there's definitely a problem with the formula, and some of that is basic aid districts. If you look at those, they're funded on property taxes, so they have lots of money, and the state doesn't make up for that in districts that don't have that kind of affluence. So ADA-funded districts don't receive the same benefits financially as basic aid districts. Okay. So this is sort of a graphic illustration of the January numbers to the May numbers. The funding levels did increase some, and they are still going back and truing up 17, 18, 18, 19, and then looking at 19, 20. And you can see that the state, much like our district, also makes some of its determination of funding based on statewide ADA. And while they did project a decline, and there was a decline, it wasn't quite as much of a decline as they thought. So therefore, there's going to be a little bit of backfilling for 18, 19. And while that sounds good for us, our ADA didn't quite keep up with our projections, so we're really kind of almost in the same place for 18, 19. Okay. And the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, in January was 3.46. In May, it's 3.26. So anything that is impacted by COLA, and all of these things listed at the bottom of this screen are impacted by that, the funding went down from January to May. So the offset of better statewide ADA was countered a little bit by the lower COLA. This looks at the minimum guarantees just in numbers instead of bubbles. And you can see that the COLA went from 3.46 to 3.26. The special education proposal, the governor had originally had $390 million in additional ongoing money and $186 million in one time. In May, it's gone to $696 million in ongoing. The probability that that is going to happen seems to be sort of waning. There seems to be a lot of pushback from the legislature about that. So nobody is telling us to budget that into anything or even consider it. At this point, the formula that they were using, because it's based on if you are your unduplicated count plus your percentage of students with disabilities. And for us, the excess of that number would have brought us, if it came to fruition, about $277,000, which is about 10% of our general fund contribution. So it helps, but there's a real question about whether or not it's going to actually happen. The other thing that did increase a little bit was the proposal to pay down some of the STIRS debt, which was helpful, and that is going to impact, and they are telling us to, go ahead and figure that buy down amount. So we did put that in, and it's amazing how much a 0.1% can make when you're talking about that much, that high a percentage times the certificated salaries. So you can see that in May, the changes in the ADA COLA were down from the January budget, but the ADA increase for 18-19 overall in the state, although, you can see down in the corner, individuals' results may vary. And that's why we're not seeing a boost in 18-19, because our ADA did do what we thought it would do instead of not as much. So this talks about the special education COLA. There's been no talk about adjusting the base rates. Special education, just like with the LCFF funding, the base rates need to be adjusted. They're just not keeping up with the cost, and so instead of 3.46 additional revenue, it's only going to be 3.26% increase. These are some of the things that the governor has in his budget that are unknowns, and again, nobody knows if they're actually going to happen. Increased number of preschool slots, increase subsidies for daycare that are non-LEA, and these are all things that aren't necessarily associated with school districts or Prop 98. And then the paid family leave is a general thing for everybody across the board that he wants to institute, but there's no assistance with the cost of that. They want to add another 2 weeks to make it 14 weeks rather than 12 weeks, which is a lovely idea, but it's costly because we have to have a sub, and we're still paying differential, and the cost to education of kids is going to suffer too with the substitutes for that much longer. This is another idea that is being kind of tossed around, and again, we don't know where this is going to go, but they're talking about changing the ADA for TK, where right now, if they aren't 5 years old when they enroll, we can't count them in ADA, so we get no money for them. So that's one of the reasons we decided to hold fast with that December 2nd cutoff. What they're talking about is if they turn 5 anytime in that year, that you can collect the ADA for them. Again, we don't know if this is going to happen, but it is something that's being tossed around, although for us it would be a little bit of a conundrum. I don't think we have to. Nobody knows what the rules are on it yet, but if we did open it up, I don't know if we have capacity.
So that's the issue that I'm concerned about. It would mean, so right now we have 6 kindergarten classrooms. If we opened up TK to anyone who turns 5 in the school year, that's another 6, because that's our incoming kindergarten, right? That's another 6 classrooms. Okay, so right now we have 2 TKs. So do we have the capacity at Redwood to open up 4 more classrooms? Well, Portable Row at Portable Row at Redwood, no. Those classrooms, some of them are not
Habitable.
Yes, thank you for saying it that way. So that's the difficulty. Where do we put them?
And how many TK do we have enrolled right
For
now?
next year,
Mhm.
18.
18.
Like I said, we don't know if this is going to be something that, we don't know all the rules around it. We don't know if we can
Yeah.
maintain the decision to take them at that age or whether we're going to be forced to open up. So, you know, scenes from coming attractions.
Nice to hear it so late in the day.
Yeah. There is also some proposal to help with teacher credentialing, and I thought this was an interesting fact from 1617 to 1718. The number of waivers or permit teachers went from 6,000 to 8,000 in the state, and I'm sure that this year that's gone up even farther. So we're not alone in our difficulty in hiring fully credentialed teachers. But it's nice to know that they're at least talking about trying to do something. So I don't know what that's going to be, but we'll see. They're at least aware of the fact, acknowledging the fact. There were three, well, this is some of the things they're talking about. So, and these are non-Prop 98 funds, so they're not coming out of our K-12 education money per se. But so money for loan assumptions for newly credentialed teachers to work in high-need schools, has having disproportionately high number of teachers on permits or waivers, which we could be getting there, but we don't know what unproportionately high is. Training and resources to build capacity and skills, and then money in federal funds for professional learning opportunities. I'm assuming that's Title II, so they might be letting go of a little more of that to the LEAs. So we've talked about this before, where we're having to get used to the idea of living in a COLA-only environment where there aren't going to be these, leaps up of revenue as we had with the years that we were reaching the LCFF fully funded. So this employee leave law is something that could put pressure on that, increasing pension contributions, the potential increase to exempt employee threshold, which we don't have too many in that kind of situation. That's people who are exempt from overtime. We don't have a lot of administrative people who are considered, they either are or they aren't. We don't have anybody kind of on the bubble, really. Increased pressure from employee groups for additional pay, and then teacher and classified staff shortages. So all of these things are putting pressure on school districts without anything other than COLA to help pay for them. And so this is just, basically saying that, what we project are things that we're required to do. And we use some assumptions and some decisions, but they're not predictions, they're just projections. And any little thing can change them and have quite a bit the last couple of weeks. And it doesn't take much. They say if the nation's economy gets a cold, California will catch the flu. Because we are such a large economy on our own that the impact is always that much greater on California. This is not supposed to be in here. Go ahead. Sorry. I pulled some of these slides from the from the presentation we had in Sacramento. So this is an interesting conundrum this year too. This is the first budget for Governor Newsom. And while there is a supermajority for the legislature, there is no indication that it's going to be a smooth do what he wants kind of year. The things that seem to be going through the Senate and the Assembly are a bit different than what he's proposed. And so we really don't know. The last 4 years or so, it's been pretty much, we'd have January and then May would be a little different, but usually May was pretty close. Sometimes we'd have a little something different come through, but for the most part, we could rely pretty much on May and know that, feel pretty solid. This year, there is no such assurance. We're all sort of, feeling, okay, we're going to put this in here, but we don't know. We could very well have some surprises in either direction once the budget is done. They're supposed to have it to the governor by June 15th, and then he's supposed to sign it by the end of the month, which is beyond the date when we have to approve ours. So we make the best decisions we can based on the information we have, and then adjust for it afterward. But it's not going to be nearly as solid footing as we have in the past with our June budget. So this is something that I am so pleased we've addressed. You can see here the average unrestricted general fund revenues of districts around the state. And for unified districts, the average is 16.98. So with districts like us who heretofore had 3%, I know you love that word, you know that there are districts with a lot more because, we're pulling that average down. And the second interim letter, I don't know if you read it.
I did.
They commended us for making that investment. I answered them today and said, yes, it looks good. So we'll get the final on that. But you can see that even with those districts, with those kinds of averages, they're still going down a little bit. And that's because of the pressures that they're seeing in expenses that aren't being covered by the revenue they're getting. They're having to use some of these reserves. So some of the difficulties with this are that unions are asking for compensation that's greater than COLA in a lot of cases, and if you look at the pressures on that 3.2%, 1.5% goes to step and column. They're saying 0.5% goes to health and welfare cost increases, which is actually a little low, I think. The increase in STRS is 0.4, so that leaves you 0.84% to cover the increased cost of everything else. And everything else does increase, so it does put a lot of pressure on the COLA amount. And this is, we've talked about this a little bit before too. So COLA is a number that's an average of the whole United States, cost of living adjustment. And if you look at the California Consumer Price Index, which is the cost of all goods and services in California, you can see that COLA does not keep up. And that's troubling here. It looks like the projection in 22-23, perhaps they'll true up a little bit, but that's so far away that it's not even really something to look at. But that's a problem, and again, it goes to the fair funding of education. COLA is a national COLA number is not helpful for California. Okay. This again shows you there's the STRS rates that they're proposed. You can really just look at the first column, the employer rates, and you can see they're still going up. We did get that little bit of relief this year from the buy down, basically. So we were all doing a happy dance, and then we got the next page, which is the PERS rates, and next page. And those went up a little bit from what we thought they were going to be, so there went the happy dance. And you can see the 20.733% is just the PERS, and then if you have your other statutory amounts in there, it's a big nut. Our classified statutory is going to be 32.38% next year. So for every $100 of salary, $32.38 in additional required cost. That's not health and welfare, that's just statutory. So again, all through this whole thing, they're, talking about the pressures that are on here. The governor did keep most of the things in January, did keep them in May. But like I said, there's an awful lot of discussion in the legislature about different proposals. So we don't know what's going to end up on his desk, and whether he will sign what ends up on his desk, or whether he'll line item veto it, or where we're going to end up. So how does this impact us? So for 18-19, I think we're going to stay about the same in the revenue. A slight increase from the state due to the ADA that I explained, and then a slight decrease because our ADA didn't quite hit target. So it's going to be about a wash for that. And this is based on the second interim numbers back in January. For 1920, the state COLA is lower than was projected. The enrollment might not be quite as high as we were anticipating because the kindergarteners may not show up in the droves that we were hoping. And then there's an acceleration of the transfer of the ADA in the TIERS ED program to the county. So what will happen is some of our funding will actually be going to the county next year so that we can bill them and they can pay us back. But it does remove that ADA. And then in 2021, the revenue is slightly lower than its second interim, but not significantly. Again, a slightly higher COLA, but a slightly lower ADA. And then in 21-22, which is the third year that we're going to have to be presenting, is very similar to the January projections. Again, a slightly lower COLA than we had then, but a slightly higher ADA. So overall, the revenues are not changing dramatically. And for the expenses, the roller coaster is really a good a picture of how the last few weeks have been. We found out that our health insurance is not going to be increasing by as much as we had been projecting because we had a pretty good year in the JPA, and so we were all hoo-hoo-hoo. And then we went to the workers' comp insurance meeting and found out that our workers' comp rates are going up, so it was like, damn. So, every time something, a little bit good happens and something a little bit bad, so it really has been this roller coaster of expenses. So we have had, which, is not necessarily a good thing, but it does help the budget. We've had quite a few retirees this year, so we will be saving some money there, so that helps even that out. We are still going to be deficit spending, but it is slowing, so the trend is good. And we still have to contend with all of those economic pressures of special ed costs rising and the pension costs. The board established reserve we have will help us be able to justify what we're planning on presenting. And while it does have the deficit spending, we know, that we generally do end up better at the bottom line than we start out with because of positions that can't be filled and other factors. And we have this cushion. So we can always say, we'll go there if we have to, which is a really nice place to be. And watch this space. So nothing really earth-shattering. So we'll just keep on keeping on, but we are, I think we're going to be in about the same place we were at second interim. It's not going to be hugely different in any direction. But we're not, we are in the third year positive.
Yeah.
So
That's enough.
that's a good thing at this point.
Yeah. And do we know when we'll find out about the TK?
No, not until the budget's
Until the
signed, so
budget's
it'll probably be the
signed,
end
yeah.
of June.
And I will
before-
tell you, we are not going to make any changes to TK for 1920. It's impossible. We can barely fill our open positions now.
Yeah.
So,
Can't bank on that.
well,
No.
and where are we going to put them?
Yeah,
So,
right.
but we've said this for a while, that the state is moving for a preschool to all for kids who are 4 years old and for 5-year-olds. So I think it's a good move, but there needs to be a lot more planning involved
Probably
because,
more than a 2-month lead.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's been the kindergarten facility grant that people have applied for, but we have portables. Portables don't qualify for a lot of hardship money.
Well, the thing with the kindergarten facility thing was our kindergartners are in classrooms with bathrooms. It wasn't a barrier to us having full-day kindergarten, and that was the criteria was, and as it turned out, it wasn't the barrier in most places anyway. It turned out they wanted half-day kindergarten. So a lot of that money really ended up not being applied for because they're just, that wasn't the barrier. Somebody made the assumption that was the barrier, but it turned out it really wasn't. But we wouldn't have qualified for it anyway.
At some point, we are going to have a very tried and true discussion about our facilities and how we're going to address it, because the slew of portables, we are going to have to address that at some point. If this new TK proposal comes in and it's something that we need to consider, I know our community will want it. And there's lots of good things to be said about it, because our TK kids, to be quite honest with you, they are our best performing
Amazing.
kindergartners. And I've said this for a long time standing. Our TK kids, how we have them targeted right now, are not the kids I'm more concerned about, because they're going to be the oldest one in the kindergarten class. I'm more concerned about the kiddos who are coming in with no preschool, who will be the youngest kids in their class. Those are the kiddos who need the TK more. So it's something that we're going to have to address. It's not something we're going to be able to kick the can down the road with. So just preview of upcoming attractions. We have to address the portable dilemma that we have in our district. So it's a coming.
So my question is looking at June. So we have the meeting on the 13th, and that we will get the LCAP public hearing and a budget proposal.
Yes, and the public disclosure for the tentative agreements.
Right.
So we also have a special meeting on the 20th. Do you still want to keep that?
Well, that's
That's
yeah.
what we we're all wondering. Because you'll have kind of obviously a pretty good
It'll be
indication
pretty
on the
close on the
13th.
13th, and then, it'll give a couple weeks to tweak, and maybe we will know something by the 30th, or 29th, what is it, 30th? 29th?
27th.
27th, something like that. Maybe we'll get answers and we can make those final little adjustments. I don't see much happening between the 13th and the 20th that,
So, with your list of, the third year, it all pretty much seemed to stay the same. all
it's going to
3
be very
years.
similar, yeah.
So, maybe I'm not remembering right, but we have to do a few cuts, correct? And do you guys have that all figured out? Or are we going to have to discuss that at this arena?
Well, as it turned out, we ended up with more retirements than we expected.
Calculated.
So that did save us some.
And we had people like retiring yesterday,
Yeah.
so we.
Things like that. And we do, in the third year, I am showing that some of the things that are being paid for with temporary money will be gone. But we may not have to do that. But as a placeholder right now, that's in there.
Okay, so it looks like we're not going to have the doom and gloom list to have the county approve.
Right, I
Okay.
think not. And
For this year at least.
right.
Well, and that's just it. You can hear Wendy
Yeah,
being
not
non-committal.
It's like we're at $19,000 at the end of the third year.
That's what I was like, I
So,
don't
mean, it's-
recall it being a huge number.
No,
It was
No.
it's
under
small, but the
50.
bottom line is that we are still continuing to
Positive.
deficit spend.
Mhm.
We are not deficit spending at the large rate that we were in our previous budget. We do have an ending balance that third year that is above zero. So for right now, we are in a place that we can breathe.
Mhm.
Um,
And if the sky falls, we have a reserve.
And if the sky falls, we have a little bit put away. So moving forward, do we need to do a Hail Mary with the budget? Not right now. Once
But
we know what
need to
the,
start using that budget committee and the parent
Correct.
advisory things and really start looking at priorities. Because
Budget
we've been
board.
saying since I've been on the board about the facilities.
Mhm.
And I agree, we definitely need to get that.
And we have some things
Together.
to show you. We had a needs assessment done, and we'll be presenting that probably the June 13th.
Yeah, we just, I don't know, we just have the draft. We don't have the final yet, and we
Okay.
haven't talked to anybody
So
yet.
that may not happen
might
until
not
August. But we are looking at it. It's not as if we're ignoring it, and it's all going to come down to priorities, and I think it's an important time for us to convene a budget committee to really start having that blunt conversation of where is the priority. For right now, though, I'm pleased as punch that we are in a place where we, at the third year out, we have a positive number. That's a big deal. And I'm pleased as punch that we have started addressing the reserve situation. We are in a much better place right now today financially than where we were 3 years ago when I started on June 16th of 2016. So, and it's because the board has prioritized these things and Wendy has beaten it down our throats that we have to do it. So I mean that in a loving, supportive way. But these are the things that we need to keep our focus.
Any public comment or questions for Wendy or, okay, the board?
No, I'm just hopeful that all the programs that are changing and some income pockets that might fall, we won't really know. I mean, unfortunately, that stuff you can't put in the budget as saying it's going to increase or decrease because you need about 2 or 3 years of data to really have that be worth on a budget. Because I know that was Scott had brought that up. Why don't we just say that this is going to increase because of the, nutrition's changing things in nutrition? We'll just put it up. It's like you can't just predict without having any data to back you up. And that was clear in the MIG training. So we can just hope that that continues to reduce the deficit spending because there'll actually be more income coming in. That's,
Well, and
real money.
I feel like I feel like most people in the district have been hearing us. I know there have been a couple of programs that have been spending way more time looking at their budgets, being careful with their budgets. How much do I have left? Oh, I don't want to buy that because I don't, And I think it's helped that people are realizing that we all need to do what we can to try to
be efficient.
Be efficient, yeah. That it's not just an endless, bottomless pit, and that there really are consequences of not paying attention. So I'm glad to see that.
Slow and steady. But I would like to suggest that the June 20th board meeting, I don't know if we have a real specific need for that special meeting. The meeting on the 13th and the 27th we need to keep because you schedule those as regular meetings, so those can't be canceled. But I don't know if we need one on the 20th. Unless you all want to just get together and really have a hoot of a time.
We can do something, we could do something else.
Well, I do, as we talked about before, I do recommend that we cancel that one, but if we could do a July kind of professional development for us and share what Jerry and I learned 2 and 3 years ago, and then what the ladies have learned recently, and just try to do some, yeah.
And there was a board request for professional development, so we'll put that on the regular board meeting in June for you to vote on, because you requested that the board vote on the board, approve the board's PD.
Mm-hmm.
So at that, okay, are we moving on to? So the next board meeting is scheduled for the 13th. Do you foresee that you need an hour for closed session for items?
I can keep it to maybe 20 minutes.
Well, what we just need to decide on a time because we will be ready to go over your evaluation with you.
Okay.
So we just want to make sure we have enough time for what you need. And we
Well-
can decide that Monday at agenda setting, but just kind of think about that, what might be
I would just say
coming
we
up.
do closed session at normal 5 o'clock time, and if we need to extend it after the meeting, we can.
Okay.
I don't anticipate having a whole lot to share with you.
Okay. All right. And does anybody, Anna, did you hear from, one time Scott was asking about moving agenda setting, and I said to wait till we were closer. I just have you, now he's on his way somewhere, and that's Monday, right?
It is on Monday, and we can move it if you need to move it.
I don't need to move it.
I haven't
Um,
heard anything.
Okay. So if one of you could just kind of maybe leave your calendar open if he can't get back from where he is, and Becky's calendar can't move it to, he had mentioned moving it to the afternoon. I can't
I'll
do
be
it in the
here.
afternoon.
I'll be here if you need someone.
It's,
Yeah, right now it's set for 8:15
Right.
on Monday.
8:15 on Monday?
yeah. So I don't know if anybody else is available pending him not, since he didn't bring that up again.
I spoke to him yesterday, and he didn't mention not being back. but-
Okay. Well, then we'll plan on that and see if we get an email. Okay. Anything else? Questions, concerns? All right, then I'll ask. Brett?
Adjourning back to close.
Yes. So can I have a motion to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Second?
My second.
Okay, so I will put us back into closed, and I'm assuming we will move. Are you guys breaking down tonight? Okay.
Can you break down in the morning, gentlemen?
Or we could move them